everybody. Nice to see a bunch of familiar names, some that I haven't seen before, and some that I have. That's awesome. For those who don't know me, my name is Max Fritz. I used to be Michelle's role, helping put together this user group. I still help with things behind the scenes. Awesome to see it progressing and so many people here. This is wonderful. I'm a product manager at Microsoft, working on the Microsoft education team. Before you drop, no, we're not talking about EDU stuff here today. I was asked to come and fill in for Stacy, who I wasn't able to make it today, but we are going to talk about M365 tenant administration anyways. Because Stacy's title is her own, I came up with my own catchy clickbaity title that we're going to go with today. You got an M365 tenant, you'll never guess what happened next. A lot of stuff to go through today. I love to do things as live demo as possible. I always say this, every presentation I ever give, this is your time, not mine. So please, just like you were for Tom, be active in the chat, ask questions, raise your hand, whatever you'd like to do, so that you can engage and help direct me with your great questions and the things you want to learn and things you want to know. Excuse me. Oh, this is going to be long if I have a lost voice. All right, so what are we going to cover here today? So we're going to start with covering the administrative roles. So really, M365 tenants, all the different functions and capabilities and how those break out into who can do what. We're going to try to map things to, real actual roles that you might have within your IT, security, compliance, and legal departments to the M365 admin roles that exist across the larger ecosystem. Now, I should say before we go any further here, M365 admin. We are not going to get into Power Platform administration. We're not going to get into Dynamics administration. We're not going to get into Azure administration because you know what? We will be here all day long. If that's the kind of stuff you want to see, make sure to say that in the survey that you're going to get at the end of the day here today. But we're going to do M365 admin roles. That will include things like Microsoft Entra, formerly Entra ID, formerly Azure Active Directory, all of our Entra and Purview components, so security, compliance kind of things, as well as all of the productivity applications in M365. We're then going to go to, where do you get started? I've got a new tenant. What do I do? What are the different things? I'm new to administering M365. Guide me, show me all the things. Then we are going to go to, okay, you got your feet wet. You've been doing this for a while, or you're just getting started and you now know the admin centers. Okay, what should you be doing on a regular basis? How do you keep things clean, things running smoothly? And then let's pretend that maybe you didn't pay attention the entire time. What are the things that you can take away? 5 things you can go do at the end of this. And that's why I turned off self-navigation to the slides, because I want you to listen. I want you to pay attention. These slides will be available at the end, though. As you can probably see, there are only 25 of them. The slides are not going to be the most important and most helpful thing of this. This is going to be, again, as much live demo as we can do. Okay, let's get started with the admin roles. I love GIFs. If you don't like GIFs, I apologize in advance. They're going to be peppered throughout the presentation today. So who are you? What do you do? Well, as far as admin roles go, there are just a few, and these are not even all of the admin roles. These are the main, most commonly used admin roles that exist within M365. It's a lot to take in, and I promise we're not going to look at the slide again. We're going to look at these roles, what they do, and we're going to actually show how you can assign them. Before we get into that, though, there are some guidelines specifically regarding security. When you're looking at administrative roles, what you need to remember is that administrative roles are your biggest attack vector for an organization. I don't care if you're in banking, I don't care if you're in education, I don't care if you're in government, I don't care if you're in commercial, whatever it might be. Your admins have larger scale roles. One of your user administrators here, for example, this role down here, they can reset a password. Do you know what that means? That means that they can reset the password of the CEO or the CIO or of anybody who might have access to a lot of sensitive information. then they might as well be that person themselves. So they're a huge attack vector. When people are looking, when malicious threat actors are looking on, okay, how do we break in here? How do we get in? They are definitely looking at places like LinkedIn and company pages for IT administrators and help desk employees and things like that of, oh, okay, that person maybe has a little less security, but they have way more ways that I can get in. So security guidelines, how do we secure these admin roles? A lot of text on here, I apologize for that, but listen, don't read. Number one, I'm not going to public shame here. I would like to, but I've been told to stop doing that. No more than 4 global admins. I don't care how big of an organization you are. I don't care if you have 500,000 or 3 million users in your tenant. No more than 4 global admins. And I will promise you that you can sit with me personally and talk about this and say, I need 7 global admins because of my corporate structure. And I guarantee you don't. I guarantee it. Ideally, get it down to somewhere like 2. However, never go down to 1. So why do I say all these things? The more global admins you have, the larger your huge attack vector is. We have different roles for a reason. These can just, pay attention to the chat. Thank you, Doug. These privileged roles, these roles that are outlined on this slide here, really help you break down, okay, you know what, maybe this person needs access to these 4 functions and they can get 3 roles to get that, but they don't need everything. Really reduce the attack vector. Why do I say don't do 1? Well, global admin is required for some key tenant administration. If you lose access to your only global admin account, you're going to be in a real rough situation dealing with Microsoft support. Don't do that. Make sure you have 2. All right, next up, assign the least permissive role. This has been a principle in technology for a long time. Least permissive role, meaning what does somebody need to do? What are the functions they need to do? Okay, and what are the roles that map to that? Here's the least permissive one that is going to work for that. And then finally, and this should maybe even be first, require MFA for your admins. I really hope you have it on for all of your users, but please, 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 if you don't have it on for your admins, go turn it on. Like, end this call now. Click the red leave button. Sorry, Michelle. Everybody click the red leave button and go turn on MFA for your admins, or keep me in the background, but like, do it now, right now. Anyways, let's take a look at the admin center and kind of show you what these admin, we're gonna kind of change my agenda here on the fly. Let's show you what the admin centers look like. We'll come back to the roles and then start to work our way through that. So where do you get started? Well, we start with the M365 Admin Center. The M365 Admin Center, give me a, well, show of hands isn't a real thing in here anymore, but give me a thumbs up reaction if you have been in the M365 Admin Center before. Okay, there we go. Lots of thumbs ups. I'm hoping that that is not just one person massively clicking that button. If you didn't know, you could do that. And everyone is raising their hand. Wonderful. Okay. The M365 Admin Center is the singular portal to get to everywhere else. There is not supposed to be any admin functionality that you can't get to through here. Now, yes, it might be in a nested menu and a link and blah, 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 blah. But this is your starting point. This is where you go as an admin. Now, maybe you're a SharePoint admin, or maybe you're an Exchange admin or Teams admin or an Entra admin or something like that, and you go straight to the center that's more pertinent to you. But this is the ideal location that we at Microsoft want you to go to first if you're a general IT admin, IT generalist, I guess. Now, there are a bunch of things that you can do in this admin center. First of all, you've got user and group management, your basic things that you might need to do as an IT administrator. Okay, I need to manage my people and I need to manage what they belong to. Then more what they have access to, things like resources. Then you've got your more back-end things like billing and support, your deeper settings. So how do you configure all of your applications and your organization and things like that? How do you set things up so that you're ready to go? Setup is generally something that you do once, but as organizations have merger and acquisition activity and changes in names, things like that, you may end up going back here. And then reporting and health, kind of keeping things nice up and running. So let's take a look at the Admin Center and how you can use it. All right, I'm going to share out my desktop. Hopefully this works properly. Now, I hope for a day when we all stop asking this question, but can somebody give me a thumbs up if they can see my screen? It's going to be a comfort thing for me forever. I'm going to keep asking it. Quick disclosure moment. This is an education tenant that you're in, so you might see a little bit more education specific content, but the features, the settings, everything is the same. Again, that's just because I work on our education team that I jump straight to these. So you're going to notice we are at our office.com homepage. Office.com hopefully is where you have all your users going for their basic productivity needs. It's the M365 hub. But we want to get to the admin location. Got a couple different ways for you to get there. Number one, I've got my admin tile right here because I am signed in as somebody who has an administrative role. I happen to be a global admin. I'm one of those 4 people in this pretend tenant, but you might be a lower admin role. So you can click that link there. You can click our wonderful waffle icon. It's technically called the app launcher, but us diehards are going to call it the waffle forever. And you're going to see admin in there if you go to explore all your apps. And you can also just go straight to admin.microsoft.com. All the Microsoft domains are changing in the future, but that'll continue working for probably eternity. So I'm going to click on admin, and it's going to bring me to that admin.microsoft.com. Now you might be saying, hold on, Max, this doesn't look like my admin center. What's this fancy view? Well, this is the first thing I want to show you here today. It's called Simplified View. This is if you are doing what we consider to be basic and common tasks for an organization based on your size and your license types. So it knows that I'm an education institution, for example, here, and that I've got, about 50 users, not 500,000 users. This is called Simplified View. You get to it by clicking on this tile here. What you might be more used to is the dashboard view. That dashboard view has existed for a long time. It is a dashboard with a lot more detailed functionality in it, detailed guidance, depending again on what kind of a organization you are and the size and things like that, and links into these deeper functionalities. I'll always click show all just so you can kind of see everything that we're working with. But tip number 1, simplified view might be the right thing for you or some of your IT folks or help desk folks to get to exactly what they need to do. Health view, we're going to skip over. We're going to come back to that. You only see dashboard view and health. Is that expected? You should see simplified view. If other people aren't seeing it as well, do feel free to share that in the chat, and I'll look to see if there are any specific requirements. Okay, I am hearing now from lots of people that don't have it. Arthur, do you have a question, or are you just saying that you also don't see it? Michelle or Don, if I can enlist your help to see on maybe our documentation if there is some sort of requirement to see it. Maybe it is only available for our smaller tenants. Okay, we'll come back to that. If we can't get an answer here together, then I will share it in the chat after I am done. Okay, so now we're in the dashboard view. I could walk you through every single tile here on the left-hand side and every single submenu beneath it, but again, we'd be here all day. I want to just show you in general what you're going to use some of these things for. Users is your general user management. You're going to find deeper capabilities in our Entra Admin Center. Formerly, we used to call this Azure AD. Remove that vocabulary. It is now Entra ID. So your users, who they are, your contacts, your guests, your deleted users, but your basic management is all going to be here. Devices is going to be your devices that are set up with your organization. Now, these are going to be This is kind of like a lightweight Intune location. If you are doing full device management, I would strongly recommend just going straight to the Intune admin centers, which we're not going to cover here today. Teams and groups. This is going to be all of your groups across your entire tenant, your security groups, your distribution groups or lists, your M365 groups, those that are teamified and those that are not. Everything in here. Nice, easy way to do group management. And then we move down to roles. I said we'd come back to roles, and here we are. So here I have my role assignments. My role assignments show me the most commonly used roles here first. And I can click show all roles. I'll wait a second to do that so that we can kind of consume what's in here. And it shows me the ability to really apply roles across the board. Now, Azure AD roles apply to almost all M365 services, but Exchange and Intune specifically as products have always had their own role-based administration with deeper capabilities, and they have sections right here for you to change those as well. Teams also has that, but that's built into the Azure AD. And lastly, billing. We like to separate billing so that, this is more financially related than anything else, as opposed to product functionality and support related. So inside of here, you're going to see a few roles. Global administrator. Forgive me for not actually explaining what this is before, but global administrator is keys to the kingdom. This is why we said don't do more than 4. Global administrator can do literally everything. There are a couple exceptions where you have to turn on something for the global administrator when it comes to security, or I should say compliance, excuse me. But let's not get into the nuances today. Global administrator can do everything. And right after that, global reader can view everything. So global administrator, no more than 4. Global reader, be careful with that one. But when we do use something like global reader, I like to call global reader the CIO role or the CEO role. I hope there are no CIOs in this call that are going to take offense to this. We usually don't get many CIOs joining this specifically. They're busy people, right? But CIOs don't need to actually change settings. They need to see everything. That's completely reasonable. Do not just assign big important roles like global administrator just because that person also has a big important role within the company. Think security first. What does this person actually need to do? What does the CIO need to do? Maybe they do need to check in and see how things are going. Yep, okay, that's global reader. That's where you assign something like that. Then you've got things like help desk administrator, where we're doing more lightweight administrative roles, things that need to happen on a daily basis, service support, so creating tickets with Microsoft, SharePoint and Teams, specifically for the applications that need to be managed there, managing users, again, kind of a help desk related role. User experience success manager, this one is a newer role, but this one really shows you everything that's going on across training, communication, survey results, product feedback, stuff like that. If I click show all roles here, it keeps going and going and going and going and going. And isn't this fun? Are we having fun yet? You can really get deep into these roles. A lot of you might remember a time, I don't know, it feels like 5 years ago, but I'm sure it was 10 years ago, where we had like 7 roles. That was it. I'm not even going to bother to count this. We have a lot of roles. So when you are figuring out what roles map to your actual titles and your functions within the organization, it's worth the time to look through all of this if you really can dedicate it. Now you can export a list of these and export a list of who's assigned what roles if you want to do kind of an audit. You can also click on these to find out more information about them. And lastly, this is kind of a newer function. Let's not do network administrator. That's not a fun one. Let's do our Teams communication support engineer versus our communication support specialist. Those sound pretty similar. What the heck is the difference? Let's click compare roles, and it tells me specifically right here who can do what in terms of very specific permissions and functionality. So take a look at these, and these are specifically to find the least permissive role that you can assign. If I'm to do a security audit for somebody, this is going to be one of the first places I go. Any questions on our role assignments? Okay. We're going to come back to administrative units if we have time here today. I'm going to go a little bit faster because I think Michelle and Don can correct me, but I don't think I have too much time here today. A few other things for you to take a look at. Resources are going to be specifically for things that are going to show up in your Exchange and Teams address book, and things like sites for SharePoint. There are better ways to manage both of these. If you operate a small business and you want to stick in this M365 Admin Center, great. You can use these. You can create SharePoint sites right here. You can create rooms and equipments for Exchange and Teams right here. But the respective admin centers for both of those are going to be a little bit easier to use, or a little bit more full functioned, I should say. Billing. I'm going to barely cover billing here because I do not want to become a licensing specialist, and I do not want to be the pincushion for the licensing questions today. But one thing that I do think is nice and helpful for administrators is the products tab here, your products. What this is going to show is your active licenses, but more importantly to me, the benefits that you have as well. So different purchasing agreements, things like that. I can get into these active licenses and I can actually see the basic details about them, including what functionalities they have inside of there. So I can view the apps and services included with something. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. This is when I get into the weird demo environment, forgive me. Let's do Power Automate here. Nope, bad example. Forgive me, demo environment, I can't see everything, but inside of here, you should be able to see apps and services that are included with the subscription. So you really know what is there for what. Moving on from billing, support. Number one thing that I think you need to know in here is service requests. This is where you're able to create new tickets with Microsoft. This is where you should be creating new tickets with Microsoft with very few exceptions. We're not going to cover the other areas. Help and support gives you nice ways to find all of our help and support articles, but those are also available at other locations. Moving on to settings. Settings is going to include a bunch of different things that you might want to change either one time or on a regular basis for your organization. A couple things to look at here. Org settings is going to include a plethora of options. This is like the hidden gem in the admin center. If you were wondering where to go configure the settings for Microsoft bookings, did you know you were supposed to go to settings and then org settings and then services and then bookings? Probably not. I'm sure there's an article that talks about it there, but here we can configure some of the basic settings for Microsoft bookings that are available in our organization. Additionally, you've got, let's go down to things like Microsoft To Do. Can people use To Do in your organization, and basic things like, should they receive push notifications? No, I didn't even know that checkbox was going to be there before I clicked it. Setting up multi-factor authentication. You don't have to go through all of our admin portals to do that. You've got one location that'll bring you there. And more and more and more, and forms and all sorts of things like that. Most of our products, we like to put them right here. Don has a fantastic suggestion that I want to highlight from the chat. Use the Admin Center search. Search bar at the top, hasn't always been there. Let's type in forms. And there you've got your setting that would bring you straight to the same location, and you've got the ability to see the forms usage as well, which we're going to get into in a second. Thank you for that, Don. Integrated apps is going to be more applications that have been deployed within your tenant for Teams, Office, soon to be Copilot, and a lot of other locations. I'm going to try to stay a little bit away from this today. It gets into deep app deployment territory that we don't have time for. And lastly, partner relationships. A couple of you actually mentioned that you are partners here. CSP, I think somebody mentioned in the chat, but partners are people that can have administrative controls of your tenant. If we're talking about security, we need to make sure that the partners that have access to our tenants should be there, and we recognize who they are. Now, they can't just pop in here unexpectedly. You actually have to form a proper agreement and relationship with them, but this can show you the partners that do have access to your tenant and what access levels they have. Okay, let's go through two last locations, reports and health. Reports. Reports is going to be our first score that I want you to take a look at. Who here has looked at their adoption score before? And don't lie. Just give me a thumbs up if you have. I'm expecting a lot less thumbs up. That's okay. This is something you can go do to take a look at your adoption of the Microsoft services and products. Now, we at Microsoft are, of course, biased on we want you to go use and adopt everything that's there. But why do we want you to do that? Because you own it. Why not? Take a look at your adoption score to see where you compare as an organization to your peers in the products you could be taking advantage of. So things like communication, content collaboration, teamwork, meetings. Now again, demo tenants, so shows me I haven't even had a meeting in here. Mobility, more and more and more different ways that you can make sure that you're adopting Microsoft services at their best. If I drill into one of these scores, I can actually see the resources specifically and actions that I can take to help bring more to my users. I can see this and see how to encourage people to use @mentions in Outlook. I can literally create a message right here through our adoption wizard to make recommendations to users to use new and fun and helpful technologies. I'm not going to go through all of this here, but adoption score can be a really interesting way to prove to your leadership that, hey, this is worth it. Here's the value we're receiving from this product or this service, and B, to help increase that value that you are receiving from a product or a service. You can also, of course, just see your plain usage statistics and trends. I shouldn't say plain, but this is where the raw data sits. This is where you can see data going on across all of the different, not all, but most of the different applications within the Microsoft 365 suite. We're going to move last down to health. We have a health dashboard here that should be one of the first places you go when something may not be looking right in your tenant. Some people go here on a regular basis, and that's wonderful. But we definitely want you to look here when something doesn't seem right. We want you to look at your service health and usage. We want to see, hey, what might be going on? Because I used to work on a help desk back in the day, and you know what's the worst thing ever? Spending an hour troubleshooting something only to realize that, hey, the vendor that owns this application or the person who's working on it already knew about this and they're already working on it. So before I go troubleshoot a really weird Teams issue, I can see what the advisory is. We got an advisory from Microsoft Teams. Let's see what it is today. Users' new meetings created in the Outlook desktop client might automatically include Microsoft Teams meetings. This doesn't seem like that big of a deal to me, but hey, it probably shouldn't be working that way unless the user specified that. So that could create a help desk ticket, and this could be an issue for us. Now, a couple of things in here. Number one, you can always tell Microsoft Post is helpful, but more importantly, are you experiencing this issue? Tell us. If you look at this and you're like, okay, yep, that matches, don't just close the window. Say you're experiencing the issue. That helps Microsoft, that helps us know which servers and which tenants might be affected by an issue so we can better mitigate it and take care of things. We got a question from Jason in the chat. Do you have any guidance as to when you should submit a support ticket as opposed to report an issue in health? Report an issue in health is not going to result in any follow-up from Microsoft. Reporting an issue in health is just going to say, hey, this affects us. Support ticket is when you need to have direct communication with us, when something, you're not seeing enough information in here, it doesn't seem like it applies to you properly, anything like that. If you need a specific piece of communication to show your leadership or anything like that that isn't in here, you can create a support ticket. But a support ticket might send you through a lot of hoops only to find out, hey, this was already reported and you're just experiencing it too. So it's really up to the amount of time you want to spend. I'm not saying you shouldn't contact our support. You are always welcome to do that. But you might save yourself some time. So that is your service health. But the number one place I want you to know in this entire admin center, yes, the entire admin center is your Microsoft 365 message center. Now, Don did a wonderful job at the beginning of our user group session today, walking through some of the highlighted points of the Message Center, some of the most important or exciting areas of the Message Center. But when I tell you this Message Center is our last line of defense to tell you as an admin what is coming or what you need to do or what you need to know, I am dead serious about it. I said my job here at Microsoft as a product manager in our education team. If anybody out here is an education customer, what I actually work on is our assignments and related capabilities inside of Teams for Education, where you can create assignments for your students and stuff like that. I just released a new feature 3 weeks ago. I had to create a Message Center post 30 days ahead of time, outlining exactly what it's going to do, what's going to happen, and how you can customize or turn it on or off. That's a requirement of all of our product managers. Every time we release something, no matter how big or how small. Now, of course, it's a group of humans, tens of thousands of humans at that. There are always going to be mistakes and missteps, but this is your location to get communication from us. Now, as we've gotten better and better about using this Message Center over the past 10 years, the posts have gotten more and more and more. I mean, this is, we're not even a week back, and now we're a week back, but I've been scrolling for quite a bit. Do take a look at this. Read it weekly if you can. There will sometimes be emergency notifications in here that are retroactive of something happened and we had to do something, but usually this is going to be us providing a lot of notice. Now you can filter this based on the platform, based on the service or application, based on the message state. This is a custom view for you. So once you mark something as red, it's going to mark it as red just for you, not everybody in your organization. And you can even archive things or forward them to email. Now, one little button up here that's really cool. If you work on a team of administrators, you might want to take a look at planner syncing, which can sync all of the Message Center posts into a plan, where you as a team can assign these to different people who might need to take actions or really have that unified group view of everything that's going on here. Additionally, there are ways through our APIs and through Power Automate to grab everything out of here. Okay. Any questions before I move us out of the general Microsoft 365 Admin Center? Okay. You know what? One last thing. I wasn't planning on showing you this. You have a pinned functionality in your custom view of the M365 Admin Center. You might have noticed how I click go. I go show all. That's what I said to you at the beginning because I wanted to see everything. Let's bring all this down a little bit more. Well, what show all does is it shows you the unpinned things. Now we have the default things that we think you might want to have pinned as an IT administrator, but we don't know who you are. We don't know what you do specifically. So if you want to change what is pinned, maybe you say, you know what? You're right, Max. I don't want to be a licensed specialist either. I don't want to deal with that. That's not my problem. Billing isn't my area. And you know what? I'm not authorized to create support tickets or even read those. So that's just not my area. Unpin that. I don't deal with devices. Unpin that. Now you've got a smaller list of relevant things to you. You know what, Max? I go into the Exchange Admin Center all the time. Pin that. Get that there for you. Customize things in the way you want. Anyways, I'm going to bring you to the scary screen I like to call it the scary screen. It is the All Admin Center screen. And it scrolls for a bit. Now, this sometimes grows, sometimes shrinks. We've gone through a lot of different iterations, and as more services pop up and more applications become part of the M365 suite, which hopefully you think of as a good thing, there sometimes will be additions to this. Some of these things you will see, some of them you won't, depending on your licensing. Again, you're not going to see Intune for Education unless you are an EDU user. Lots of different things in here. I'm going to show you some of the things that I think you need to focus on the most. Let's start with the services that you are probably administering regardless of who you are. Those would be things like Exchange, SharePoint, and Teams. You could add Stream and Office and other things to that, but SharePoint, Exchange, and Teams, some of the bedrock foundation of Microsoft 365. Those are areas you want to go to. Those are areas that you might be interested in configuring things. Exchange Admin Center, I'm going to open it, and I swear we're going to close it really fast because everybody's going to get scared. Just kidding. Exchange Admin Center is where you go to manage all things mail and calendar related. Exchange Admin Center is its own very, very intense beast. There's a full exam and certification on this if you really want to spend time on it. It is everything mail, calendar, contacts related for your entire organization, and a few more smaller things if you're an exchange person that you'll know. And if you're not, you don't ever have to worry about it. This is where you're going to go to manage those sorts of things. And close, like I promised. The SharePoint Admin Center, which I'm guessing based on the people's names that I've seen in this already, are going to be a little bit more familiar with. SharePoint Admin Center is where you can go to manage all of your SharePoint world, all of the sites, communication sites, hub sites, team sites, classic team sites. Everything that you might need to do is going to be in the SharePoint Admin Center. Now, the SharePoint Admin Center sometimes has wider effects than just SharePoint itself. If I go into our SharePoint Admin Center settings, you're going to see that I can change settings for SharePoint. I can change settings for Stream, now that Stream is based on SharePoint and OneDrive, and OneDrive as well. Just in case you didn't know, OneDrive and SharePoint have the same backend on the Microsoft side. So all of our OneDrive settings are actually here in the SharePoint Admin Center as well. And then we've got our policies. Our sharing policies affect all M365. If you go to share a document in Teams or a file link in Outlook, it's going to be based on this right here, the permissive settings for external sharing for SharePoint and OneDrive, how links work. Anytime you get that file share dialog that you probably are familiar with in any of your Office apps, in OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, Outlook, all these different locations, this is what's controlling it. So SharePoint Admin Center is one of those areas that you definitely want to configure a lot of those different things. And then last but not least, Teams Admin Center. Now, this one I really could spend a whole day on. And if anybody happens to be going to 365 EduCon next week in Seattle, you can come see Michelle and I actually spend hours in this admin center together. We get to do a fun presentation on that. This is for everything Teams related. If it happens in the Teams app, it is in here. It's going to get really deep into lots of different areas. I can't spend time on this with us here today, but we'll be happy to do a deeper dive at a different time. And I'm sure there's going to be some sessions at our upcoming workshop day related to that as well. Okay, so we talked through Teams, SharePoint, and Exchange, but what are even more important things? In my opinion, the Compliance Center and the Security Center. Let's do a pop quiz. Whoever gets this in the chat fastest wins. What is the name of our Compliance Center? What happens when I click this? What is the name of the admin center that we're going to land on? Purview. Lucas got it. A lot of you got really close. And also it actually says it here. This time it doesn't give it away in the page. What happens when we go to our Security Admin Center? What is it called? I don't think it says Defender. You know what? You might be right. You all are right. It is M365 Defender. I keep thinking Entra because Entra is where I live so much of my day, which is the more identity security side of things. But that is part of Defender. Good job to everybody. And who got it first? Steve. Good job. I can't give up prizes. That's not my job. But fill out the survey and you still might get prizes. So let's start in the Security Center. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of things to do here. One thing that I'm going to tell you should go do now. Secure Score. I said before when we looked at our productivity score, that was the first of the scores we're going to look at today. Secure Score is next. Secure Score is the OG. It's the original score that Microsoft created. I don't know, it feels like 10 years ago. Feels like everything was 10 years ago. Secure Score tells you where your tenant configuration scores in terms of security. And we break it down into a lot of different areas. And I want to make sure you understand that these are based on a couple different things. First of all, these are based on best practices. These are based on things that our security team has really said, hey, we built this to be secure. We built this functionality for security. You should do this to impact your score as an organization. But we also have a team here at Microsoft. I don't remember their real name. Somebody else from Microsoft can probably say it, but they're kind of like a SWAT team. They get called in when an organization gets breached. You're a big organization, you say, we got breached, we need Microsoft's help immediately. They're the ones who go and help. They're the ones who jump in, get into the trenches, kick whoever's out who shouldn't be there, and help figure out how the breach happened. When they figure out how the breach happened, they make sure that it feeds back into secure score. We're not revealing customer information to others or anything like that, but what we're saying is, hey, enabling the policy to block legacy authentication not only is the best practice for us, but we've seen legacy authentication multiple times cause breaches for organizations. That is why it impacts your score. Requiring multi-factor authentication for administrative roles. Remember that one that we talked about 20 minutes ago? Yes, that is in here. And in fact, is the biggest score impact item you can do. Those are things that are in here for a reason. Now let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at our recommended actions. Require multi-factor authentication for administrator roles. It tells you what to do. It tells you why to do it. It tells you your user impact, and it gives you an immediate way to go and implement it. It tells me specifically the prerequisites that you'll need. It gives you ways to do it with those prerequisites and even without, and it allows you to go manage and actually put this into place. Now, let's say you work for an organization, like most of you do, that you can't just go willy-nilly changing settings. Okay, make an action plan. Make an action plan, document it here, share this out with another person that, hey, let's address this in the next change advisory board meeting that we have coming up, whatever you need to do to go and implement these. Now, maybe you're going to say, you know what? This is actually not relevant to us, Microsoft. Okay, great. Click it, open it up, and say, you know what? That we're Microsoft, we do multi-factor authentication through these other guys over there. We don't use your thing. Well, I think that's silly, but to each their own. Go and say that that's been resolved through a third party, or that that's been resolved through an alternate mitigation, or that you've accepted the risk to change your secure score properly. Now, everybody asks me, what is a good secure score? Not going to answer that question. Not a thing. Your secure score should be as high as you can possibly get it. You should be going through every single recommended action that is available to you. This is a huge deal. Security is a big deal. Don't think somebody else is going to do this unless you literally have somebody that you know is doing this in your organization. Take a look, go through this. And that is literally all I'm going to go through in the M365 Defender area. There's a reason this is built out. Please use it. All right, now let's go into our Compliance Center. And as Lucas and everyone else in the chat pointed out, this is called our Microsoft Purview portal. This is where all the compliance for M365 happens. What do we mean by compliance? A lot of people just say, okay, well, yeah, we need to be compliant. We mean all sorts of things. We mean how you can put into place DLP policies, data loss prevention, to make sure that we're properly identifying sensitive information types and taking the right actions. We're talking about managing insider risk. We're talking about setting up barriers within your tenant to separate people who should be separated. We're talking about lifecycle management for retention policies, for disposing of information when you should and keeping it when you shouldn't. All sorts of things like that. A couple different things that I want you to take a look at. Number one, your audit. I hope everybody takes this action here. Go to your Purview Admin Center, click on Audit, and if you see this big blue bar that says Start Recording User and Admin Activity, please click it. Please click it. Please click it. Please click it. Why? Because let's say you have something that goes wonky and you need to figure out what a user did and when, or more importantly, what an admin did when. If you don't have this pre-turned on, you aren't going to be able to get access to that information. Microsoft isn't going to turn this on for you until you say, you know what, this is important to our organization. Please go turn it on. This is important. I believe actually some of the newer tenants this is automatically turned on for, but take a look, make sure that audit is turned on. If you're not a global admin or a purview or compliance admin, you're not going to have access to this, but do ask somebody to make sure it's turned on. That is going to be in our top 5 tips here at the end. Other things that you should take a look at, though, are things like our data lifecycle management, where you can set up things like retention policies. If you don't have a retention policy set up to, let's say, hold information for 7 years, because that's what your legal team says you need to do, or that's the federal law you need to comply with, and it's just not going to happen then. People are going to be able to delete stuff. It's going to disappear forever. You're going to call Microsoft and we're going to say, or sorry, it's gone. The servers don't have it anymore. Make sure you have retention policies set up as advised by whoever, whatever legal team or whatever compliance team you have internally. If you need guidance on this, we can guide you through that, through the retention policy setup wizards, but it's things that you really should take a look at. And then data loss prevention. Even if you don't see yourself as an organization that needs to find out when somebody's sharing something like a social security number or something like that and do specific actions, you may want to set up a policy to at least identify when that happens on the back end, or suggest to a user, hey, maybe you shouldn't share that here. Social security numbers are one of the most common examples in here, but there are all sorts of different things that you can find, financial information, medical and health, other sorts of PII outside of social security numbers. And you can even create your custom policies using regular expressions. Okay, I am running a little short on time, and in fact, I kind of skipped over some of my PowerPoint here. We actually went into the more advanced capabilities. I apologize for that, but I think we are been on a flow. A few other
Max,
things that yeah.
Feel free. We can go all the way up for another 15.
Okay. Michelle said Max can talk longer. Somebody mark the time and date.
Only 15. The timer starts now.
Thank you. While we're pausing here for a second, Ryan had a question in the chat about, do I know how to get properties such as date created and who created objects in the admin center without going to PowerShell? Audit logs are available for some things, but the logs only go back so far. That's a good question. Audit logs are really the only way I know of doing that. Now, depending on your licensing level, you are able to actually put things into, oh God, what do we call our SIM tool now? It's part of the Defender suite, but you're able to actually kind of have the logs. Sentinel, thank you, Ryan. You're able to have those logs ingested into Microsoft Sentinel, which can keep things for a much longer time. Additionally, if you don't have Microsoft Sentinel and you have your own SIM tool, you can actually have those ingested into whatever SIM tool that might be. There are APIs for that. Hopefully that gave you a okay answer. Now, while we're here, we're going to take a quick moment to cover Max's favorite, least favorite topic, which is information barriers. Who here set up information barriers before? Give me a thumbs up. All right, I only saw Michelle's thumb up, and I'm going to ignore that, and I'm happy that nobody else has set it up here. Why do I say that? Information barriers are really cool things. For those who don't know, information barriers create logical boundaries in your tenant to ensure that specific users can't communicate with other users in the tenant. There are a lot of really important reasons for that. Before I was on our education team here at Microsoft, I worked in healthcare. I worked with organizations that had both a payer and a provider side. And for those who don't know the terminology of healthcare, that means they basically ran like a hospital and insurance. Guess what? In the United States, those people can't talk to each other without going through proper formal protocols. That's really bad if they were to do that. So information barriers are really important for them to make sure that, hey, you're literally not allowed to just chat each other. That's not okay. But you're really setting up a brick wall boundary in between people. It's very restrictive. Now, there are a couple different ways to tweak it, and we can talk about those at a later time, but information barriers really halters productivity and collaboration within a tenant. So if you are looking for that specifically because you have a legal or compliance need for it, go do it, please. But don't just do it because you think, you know what, these people should be separate. I want them to be separate. I've seen people in education, for example, put their faculty and staff in one information barrier and their students in the other. And guess what? The teachers can't talk to the students anymore. It's a problem. Don't do that. But if you find that you do need information barriers and you do have access to E5, that is something that's worth taking a look at. A lot of other things in here in our Purview Admin Center, but we're going to take a step back and jump to our overall Admin Center. Okay, last area that I actually want to spend some time on, Michelle, I'm not even going to take the full 15 minutes you gave me. It, I believe, is under roles, and that's administrative units. I know a few of the names here. I see you in the chat. I see you in the attendance, and you work for bigger organizations, and I know a lot of the rest of you probably do too. Administrative units is a really cool thing. It allows you to basically take administrative roles to a certain level and actually say it should only be able to manage these people. The example on the screen here is actually a good one. Help desk. I only want you to manage users in your specific region or your specific subgroup. Maybe you have a tenant that spans across worldwide regions. You probably, not going to be your lawyers here, but you probably have regional laws that you can only have certain people managing certain users. Maybe it's for less of legal reasons. Maybe it's for just pure segmentation. Maybe you have brought in a lot of organizations through mergers and acquisitions, and you have separated IT functions for those different sub companies or subgroups. Well, go ahead and create an administrative unit. Creating an administrative unit is pretty simple. We're just going to call this MN365 today. And now I can actually say what groups or users, ideally use groups. You can only do 20, or if you do a bulk upload, you can do 200, but that's specific users, and that's 200 is a pretty small group. So ideally do groups here. I can add a specific group. We're gonna just add, okay, whatever. This group here, I have no idea what that's for. It's from something I did a long time ago. And now I can say the admins that I want down to these scoped roles. Now, if you remember, half an hour we looked at the roles together, there were hundreds of them. Not all roles support administrative units, but some do. So maybe I'm going to make sure that for teams, only these specific admins are able to manage these people. So let's find Adele. Adele can be the team's admin for those people. Now I can see in here the permissions that Adele's going to get for these specific people, and I can hit close. Now we can see that I have one admin assigned to the team's administrator for them, and I can go on and on and on. I can have multiple checkboxes. Oh, I used to be able to do that. I can basically set this up for each individual area, and then I can finish this. I'm not going to do this because it's going to screw up my demo environment forever, and I'm going to come back in a month and not remember that I did this. But all you have to do is click add, and then you have delegated administration available for that group of users. Okay, let's switch back to our PowerPoint here. Oh, I forgot to show you one of my favorite things. Okay, let's go back into our security compliance center. And I'm going to go to our identities. Actually, you know what? Max is going to go old school here. Somebody can point out that there's a better way to do this, and I welcome you to do this. I always go to aad.portal.azure.com because that's the way that I used to get to Azure AD Admin Center. It's now entra.microsoft.com, and then you click on identity. In here, I can go to my groups. Click on this group here. Give me for a second while I try to find where something went. I'm going off script here. Okay. There we go. Forgive me, it's been a hot second since I did this. What I was trying to show you is group-based licensing, and I'm sure one of 25 of you could have showed me how to get here faster. What is really cool to be able to do is going to your licenses and saying assign them to a specific group. If you're doing manual license assignment or PowerShell license assignment for God forbid, please take a look at this. What you can do in here is you can assign specific users and groups with specific options of, which specific sub part of that license do you want on or off, the specific features and products and services, and then assign it out. And group-based licensing will take care of everything for you, and it will show you any of the conflicts or anything like that. Group-based licensing is a really cool thing that you can do in Entra or Azure Active Directory. Please take a look at it. Anyways, let's get to the end of our presentation. I'll hand things back to Don and Michelle. Oops, I clicked the wrong presentation button. It's been a day for me. Slides should be coming back up any second here. Okay, top 5 things I want you to take away. Let's pretend you didn't listen to me at all. Hopefully you did, but that's okay. 5 things you can go do now. Number 1, please enable multi-factor authentication, at least for your admins, but take a look at enabling it for your entire user base. Next, configure roles for your admins using least-based privilege principles. Go and take a look. Lower the amount of global admins you have. Go improve your secure score today. We'll get secure score in a second anyways, but check your message center weekly. Go set up a calendar appointment, set up the planner sync, set up email notifications, whatever works best for you. But check your message center weekly. It's where we at Microsoft try to communicate with you. Ensure, go use your secure score. Go see what the score is. See if there's a couple low action items that you can do today. Maybe things that you need to bring to other people, bring to your change advisory board, whatever it might be. Find a way to improve your secure score. That's the challenge I want to give you. Every person here, go try to improve your secure score by 1%. Just do something small. And then last but not least, go ensure your auditing is on in the compliance center, in the purview center. Really worth your time. If it's not on, it's going to save your behind later on. So that's all I have today. Hopefully I did half as well as Stacy would have done. I'm sure she's going to be back at a future user group. Love seeing you all and look forward to seeing a bunch of you at the next workshop day in the fall.